Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We're back. Just one show tonight. Just getting ready for Thanksgiving. So, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Tomorrow, and then we'll be back next week with a couple of shows. But tonight, we had a group reach out to me, and we talked, and I really was interested in what they were doing. And one of the things that we'll talk about is Chicago Mothman. What they're doing, but it's the Phenomenology Research Partners, PRP. You can find them at phenomenologyresearchpartners.com. We have team Bill Kasulis, JC Kasulis, and Amanda Raber. They're going to be with us tonight, and we're going to be talking about not only what is phenomenology research and just the different projects that they're involved in, and that is next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is why I need you. Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, Austin. But Chris may or may not be here because he is picking up family from the airport, so he's on his way. So he might be here, he might not, but either way, like I said, it's exciting. I didn't really know much about the term phenomenology until I looked it up, and that one was just. They'll correct me if I got the wrong definition, but through my research, is that it's a philosophical study of the observed unusual, whether it's people, events as they appear, and so kind of an example of that is green flash that happens before sunset or just before sunrise. That's one of the, but also different, creatures, stuff. But that's where we brought the experts in, so I don't just babble about subject I don't really know about, and that's why we have JC Bill Kasulis and Amanda Raber with us tonight. How are you folks?
Hey, so far so good. Craig, thanks for having us on.
Oh, well, appreciate you guys reaching out to us. That's one of the, when I got the message, I was like, yeah, absolutely. It's like anytime we get these things, because I set out when I got with the guys about doing the show, is I wanted it. I've always been a big fan of shows like Coast to Coast AM, those different ones where just the different topics. And then when I'd search stuff up, I couldn't find it. It was kind of frustrating. But then I figured, why not just do the show ourselves instead of fighting? So that's kind of where you guys are helping fill those things, because like I said, I never, honestly, when I started this out, I don't think I would have ever thought of show like phenomenology. So that's, what is it to you guys? What is your definition of phenomenology?
Thanks for asking, and again, thanks for having us on, guys.
Oh yeah,
we appreciate it. So phenomenology, the term itself, basically applies to a study wherein you, as a first person perceiver, what is your experience? It could be pertinent to any type of a phenomenon, so to speak. So that could be anything that presents itself either as a normal circumstance. Let's say the five of us together on this screen tonight, that's a phenomenon. That's something that's happening. It's taking place. But each one of us has a perspective upon how that's taking place. So phenomenology is the study of our perception from a first-person point of view, and it can be about anything normal, or it certainly could be about anything paranormal as well.
Oh, nice. And then, obviously, how did you guys come about forming the Research Partners group? I mean, who started that? Who kind of came up? Who spearheads it? Just type all those things for the people that don't know yet.
Yeah, and kind of ad hoc actually. Jackie, since you kind of reached out and got this set up, can you give a little bit of a history as to how we came together and what we did?
Well, Bill and I had a plan of doing something on this order, but we weren't exactly sure where we were going, except for we definitely wanted to do something with the Point Pleasant experience of the Silver Bridge collapse and the Mothman. And we took Amanda with us out to Point Pleasant because she had never been there before. And we ran into a fella named Steve Ward and was chatting with him for a little bit. And he asked us to be on his podcast. So on the way back and over a little bit of time after we got back, we decided that since we were going to be on Steve's podcast, we needed to decide if we were going to have a name, if we were going to do this together. And so we kind of put the name together, put a website together, got on the podcast. And then from there, here we are.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, because that's we've had Steve Ward on the show. Yeah, we talked to him. We've also really close friends with Joey and Tanya Medea, and they're big. Joey's working on a Mothman escape room for there. So he's doing that, and so that's really, I'm hoping, so that would be cool. Getting that, find that. That's one of those destinations that's on the list. It's like I have to get to Point Pleasant because. You guys, I mean, everybody else we're talking to is just, they're like, you've got to get here. And I'm like, I know. It looks like an absolute blast getting there for the festival.
Well, and you know what, Craig? Hey, as long as you open the door there, Jackie and I have been there a number of times, but Amanda, what was your first trip to Point Pleasant like the first time we went?
Oh boy. It was, I had heard so much about it, so I thought I knew what to expect. But when I got there, honestly, it was different than I expected. Everybody was just so friendly, and it wasn't in like an ooky spooky sort of place. Like Point Pleasant, a lot of times is portrayed as, ooh, this is where the Mothman was, and all this, spooky stuff. But it's pleasant. It really is just pleasant. But we did, go into all the spooky place, like the TNT area. Okay, that is pretty spooky.
That's what I want to see that too, because I've seen the pictures from Joey and Tanya, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was very otherworldly. But then, the rest of it was just very beautiful, and like I said, friendly, and man, I'm not really an escape room person, but I cannot wait to go back and do that Mothman escape room. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, that's one of those things I'm looking forward to. I think that's going to just be an absolutely fantastic draw for him. And now you guys, you spent a little bit of time there. So have you? What would you say is your biggest experience that you guys, either collectively or individually have had in that area?
Well, I think to answer that, I'm thinking back, Jackie and I have been there, 7 times now? 7 times. We took a vacation back in 2016 because we wanted to go someplace together between work and everything else we've had going on. It was tough to carve time out, but we were able to make a vacation. And I think our very first trip, speaking for myself, probably the most profound experience that we had there wasn't necessarily paranormal. It was the relationships, like Amanda was just alluding to. When Jackie and I first arrived at Point Pleasant, we got there after the Mothman Museum was closed back in July of 2016. But there was a little lady in a restaurant across the street that was kind of acting like she wanted to spend some time with us. And Jackie said, why don't we go in there? I think she wants to talk to us. So we ended up meeting a lady by the name of Carolyn Harris. And I don't know if that name rings a bell or not, but Carolyn actually was somebody who had a restaurant called the Harris Steakhouse, aka the Mothman Diner. We became fast friends with her. I mean, we just fell in love with her. She was the sweetest lady. And we got to know her over the course of the next several days. And being an aspiring author at the time, I wanted to write a book about our experience. And Jackie and I talked a few months later about going back to Point Pleasant and asking Carolyn if we could interview her for a biography. She actually had lost her ex-husband and her son when the Silver Bridge collapsed on December 15th, 1967.
Oh,
the day
wow.
after that I mentioned that to Jackie, Carolyn had a heart attack, and the next day she passed away. So I would say that first experience that the two of us had, going out there and meeting Carolyn, that was my most profound experience of there. Jackie, what about yours?
Probably that. Just going there the first time, seeing the Memorial Silver Bridge the first time, crossing the Ohio River and the Canal River, and the energy that is there. There's like I don't know how to describe it, but there's like this underlying energy that you can just feel move you. It's not ominous. It's like Amanda said, it's not like this Mothman kind of thing. It's just I don't know if it's up and down the Ohio Valley, there's a lot of energy. So possibly it's the river, possibly it's the legends. I didn't realize this, but the Revolutionary War first battle was fought there. And
I didn't either. I didn't know about that either. I just found out that actually I've heard about that today.
Yeah. A lot of American history right in that little town. And also, I guess the thing that probably the most profound thing was when I was at the point where the rivers can merge. They said that the town of Point Pleasant was named Pleasant Point because George Washington stood at that point and looked out over the rivers and said, "Isn't this a pleasant point?" So that's the original name of the town. And they eventually got switched around to Point Pleasant.
And I wanted to catch myself, like I said, correct things. I said JC, I meant Jackie.
That's fine.
No. That's what I said. I want to correct these things. Like I said, when I said that, I'm like going, I did butcher that. I'm like going, so I apologize, everybody. It's Jackie, not JC. Don't listen to me. No, that's one of those things that's awesome. It's like Beth shows I'm not too above humbling myself upon with the audience, saying it's like, oops, I screwed up. So no, it was funny, just like you said, when you brought up that battle, I had no idea that a Revolutionary War battle, that there was one that was there. I mean, I know that the skirmishes all over, but just that there'd been one there, and it also, had a real tie to the local, tribal nation. Mm-hmm. That was, in that area. And I didn't know, and how synchronous is that for the fact that, I talk about that this morning with somebody, and here we are bringing it up. And I'm like, I wouldn't have had any idea until today. So that is really cool.
The whole thing is cool. When we literally were driving down Main Street, we saw, this is the first time Bill and I went, we saw a car with plates on it that said Cornstalk. We're like, Cornstalk? It was right outside of Carolyn's restaurant. So we went inside and we met a seventh descendant of Chief Cornstalk in the restaurant. So that was pretty cool too. We've had a lot of really, really neat experiences out there, but we've made a ton of friends.
And for those of us that might not be familiar with what the significance of the name Cornstalk means, Chief Cornstalk back in 1774 was killed by settlers in a skirmish, basically. And legend has it, and this is a pretty far stretch of a legend. In fact, our friend and gentleman that we interviewed a couple of months ago for our project, Denny Bellamy, who you might be familiar with, had told us, look, I got the documents to prove that this isn't really a curse. It didn't really happen. But legend has it that Chief Cornstalk, when he was murdered, cursed the land for 200 years. And that might very well be some of the impetus for why Mothman arrived. Now, I don't necessarily buy that. I don't really subscribe to that, but it's part of the whole Mothman story. And so it's interesting.
Well, when I heard that story, I was just like, how do you get the name Chief Cornstalk? I mean, it's like, did you draw the short straw, type thing? It's like everybody else gets like Chief Eagle, Chief, Brave Bear. You get all these days. It's like you're Chief Cornstalk. I'm like, it's like, how do you come up with that one? But then it's, if somebody tells the story, it's like, okay, it sounds a lot cooler now. Because just on the thing, if you just write down Chief Cornstalk, you're like, that just doesn't seem that impressive. That just seems like people just didn't, they just kind of gave up. They're just looking around like, let's just call them that.
Well, of course, that name is a Americanization of, his actual name. Which the Shawnee word for it, his Shawnee name escapes me at the moment. But, the settlers translated into, oh, yeah, you're that Chief Cornstalk guy. Okay.
It sounds about right, where we just short it to something just simple. It's like, oh yeah, you're that guy that drives around. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He all of this. Blame it on the.
And he wasn't anything to be trifled with, because he stood 6'6" or something. He was a very tall, strong warrior.
Yeah, just see, that's what just see the descriptions. He's like, you think there would be something more epic, like it comes in, and that's as you're going through there, and then you read the story. It's like, as you see, you get these things. I'm like, okay, that makes so much, makes more sense. But just if you just read it on paper, you're just like, God, that just seems like such a weird name to be, to go with. But it's like, hey, everybody, I'm not mocking him. No curses.
Kitugwa sounds a little bit more profound.
Yeah.
But I mean, what does that mean? I guess it means cornstalk, and in our language, that's what it equates to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's now you've got something coming up December 7th.
Yeah, actually,
it's going to be
just
airing.
A little cameo, really more than anything else. So Seth Breedlove of Small Town Monsters contacted me a few months ago. I think it was back in May or June, because the three of us have been a little bit involved with the Chicago Mothman phenomenon, as it's been called. And so Jackie, Amanda, and I were introduced to each other through our association with a MUFON group and an investigator, and actually the chief state director of Illinois for MUFON, Sam Moranto. He kind of brought us together, and I had a huge fascination. Jackie had a huge fascination with the Mothman phenomenon from Point Pleasant. Well, then we heard these things were going on in the Chicagoland area as well. And so we kind of joined forces with Sam. Sam introduced us to Amanda. That's how the three of us got connected. And through that association, Sam had been contacted by Seth to be part of the Lake Michigan Mothman release, which is coming out on the trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman, is going to be released on December 7th. They contacted me and wanted me to do a video shoot for that too. So I've been kind of on the periphery of the project that Sam's been working on, and Amanda's been a part of too. And I've been more than a little skeptical about what's been reported there. And so they pulled me in to kind of take the psychological perspective of, how this might be going on. How does this compare to what's been recorded and become legendary in Point Pleasant? And so I've got about a 1.5-minute cameo in Lake Michigan Mothman that's coming out in a couple weeks.
And it kind of, when we were I teased it in the beginning too. So there seems to be a couple camps on when it comes to the Chicago Mothman. There seems to be the camp that is in fact a thing, concrete, this is a thing. And then there's the other one that seems to be leaning more to the side that this is more of a copycat, that this is more of that this is something that's may not be, but it's kind of just being, kind of shoehorned into that category. So obviously it seems like you guys are in this is a thing, camp. But I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Well, not necessarily in the this is a thing. I'm rather skeptical about the reports.
Yeah, that's.
And Jackie and Amanda are probably a little bit closer to that than I am. I think I've picked up on enough inconsistencies in reports and just through various research that's been done that I'm having a real struggle believing it. But I'd like to hear what they think as well.
Yeah, if we were to be put in a camp, if we had to go to one camp or the other, we would be in the. This is not a thing, I would think. Of course, I'm sure we all have our variations. About that, but okay, for me, it's not a thing. I mean, yes, there are reports popping up online, and I'm saying that with big air quotes, Um, but there's also red flags that come up when you read those. So for me personally, I like Bill said, I had been working with Sam, the state director, on some of this stuff quite a bit, and I wanted to believe it. I was excited.
Mhm.
I wanted to go out there and find them. But the more I looked into it, just the less likely it was, I think.
I mean, it's a hard thing to just like drop, just like, boil it down to the one thing. What is your biggest, I would say, like either red flag or question that the three of you have come at? I mean, it could be the same thing. Each one of you may have a different thing that you clued on, but what is it about that this one, it just seems like this could be something, but I don't think it's Mothman.
I would say that some people are definitely seeing something, some type of a big winged creature. I don't believe it's a Mothman. I think the biggest thing are the reports that are coming in, where they're going to, and the short stories these reports are, rather than just being a point-to-point report like typical reports are. They're full of all kinds of fluff and stuff that are not necessary in any type of reporting when it's serious.
Yeah. That's Amanda, Bill, what do you guys think?
Well, I am a field investigator for MUFON, and so I do get reports straight from the public about things that they've seen, and I interview them. I contact that person and interview them and write my report based on that. So I know what a normal report would look like. I kind of know the process, and with some of these Mothman reports, of course, we can't say all of them, but many of them, it just doesn't look like a report that you would get. It's like Jackie said, it's very fluffy. There's stage directions and and set design, and
Yeah.
you don't get that in a normal report. I know Sam has done some research into IP addresses, and that's definitely weighed into my opinion of these reports. Like, how do you have a woman downtown Chicago and a young man in the suburbs and another person in some other suburb all with these very dramatic stories, all coming from the same IP address?
And I think
Yeah.
on top of that too,
Yeah,
if I could, I don't mean to cut you off, Greg.
No, go ahead. No, I'm just agreeing. I go, yeah, that does seem a little suspicious. I said that's huge red flag right there.
So I've spent probably the last 16 to 17 years getting my hands on everything associated with the traditional Mothman phenomenon as it was based in Point Pleasant. And we've gotten connected to some authors and done a lot of digging into a lot of different literature that's been published about Mothman and so on and so forth. But one of the things that we were able to find out is that in a publication of a relatively infamous photograph of a Native American, I think 63rd and Pulaski, if I got that right, in Chicago, there is a Native American statue that in the background, I think the upper left-hand corner, if I remember correctly, there is a picture that's been alleged to be Mothman. There were a couple different authors have utilized this picture and stood behind this, calling this the nexus of the Chicagoland Mothman flap. So did a little bit of back research, got connected to a gentleman by the name of Andy Colvin, who has published all kinds of books on the topic, written all kinds of stuff on the topic. Found out that he was on Coast to Coast AM the same day for his one publication that he did about Mothman. He's the most voluminous publisher and writer on the topic in history. After he did his appearance on Coast to Coast AM, that very next day, this picture was snapped. And they alleged that this was the Mothman. Now, Sam Moranto has done some significant research to kind of back engineer that photograph and has determined through doctoral level research that this is a picture of a gala kite. Definitively, it is a kite. And so that's where the story kind of started in 2011. Now, on top of that, in 2017, this is coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Silver Bridge collapse. So during the time leading up to within the next 6 months, the bulk of the cases started coming out where all these different copycat type reports, I call them copycat. I can't say definitively that they are, but they appear to be fictitious. They appear to be really elaborated on, not in the way that one would typically see a report come in really from any source. And all these things are put together. And the main backdrop, the one that gets me, is that the witnesses who saw this figure silhouetted against the moonlit sky. That statement, silhouetted against the moonlit sky, is spoken to 3 to 4 times. It comes up over and over and over again. It just seems contrived. I mean, the 50th anniversary, all this stuff is going on. Come on, guys, you're selling books. It looks to me like that's what's going on here.
No, I would agree with that too, because it sounds, especially when you're getting what Amanda said, coast to coast. And a little side note, I'm still a little salty that the Oregon chapter over there of didn't include me in some of the research things. I tried to get on with that, and I said I never heard back from them. So like I said, I'm still a little salty. So that's a little sidebar.
No. Get in contact with the Oregon chapter. I'd let them have it for you. But
no, it's I'll have to get on with the Florida chapter. Yeah, it does. It's so like when those things, like see reports, it's like it's really common when you talk to somebody, the likelihood that they're going to use eloquent language, some artistic thing, that's very rarely. I mean, we've all seen the viral video, a lady comes out, it's like, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I mean, that's the kind of reports that you get. You don't get these things. And it was at that point when I felt this cold air breathe upon my neck and I saw it silhouetted across the sky as it glided across. It doesn't come out that way. You're like, I was standing there eating a taco, and then all of a sudden I looked up and here came this flash thing. And I was like, oh, those are the kind of conversations you have. It is so, as you said, that they've been silhouetted in front of the moon. I'm like, no, I wouldn't buy that. Maybe one, you're gonna get the one person, but for everybody to give the same accounting, it's like, that seems like there's a little bit of a connection.
And the other thing is, when reports come in, most of the time they want to talk to someone. The submitters want to be contacted and they want to tell their story. But with a lot of these Mothman stories, the witness doesn't want to be contacted. By no means contact me. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want any notoriety. I just don't talk to me. Just here it is. This is all you get.
Yeah.
And okay, yes, one or two witnesses, I'm sure, would say that, but the majority of them, that's weird.
Well, and they're contacting 3 specific websites, and they want to remain anonymous with those 3 websites. They'll talk to them, but they don't want anybody else questioning them about any of it. So if anybody really wanted to get down to what's really going on, you can't, because the information is being withheld from everyone.
That's for me, that's also another thing that just seems really, really bizarre. I mean, because most of the cases, like you see coming from West Virginia, people still, they've got accounts, but they're not standoffish. They're not like, no, I don't want you to contact me. I mean, they'll explain it to you. I mean, a lot of them don't want to be on camera, don't want to, which is like normal. It's like, because it's just that shy thing. You don't want everybody thinking you're that crazy person that saw Mothman, but you're still willing to talk and tell your story.
And what I find, Craig, interesting about that too, is you bring up Point Pleasant, and in 1967, which was a far more conservative time, these people were able to tell who they were. And there were still some that were what John Keel would call silent contactees, people who didn't want their information out there. But today, 2017 through 2021, everybody has a digital footprint. People are throwing things out on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever media possible. And I just can't believe that all these different alleged witnesses don't want their information out there when people are posting what they had for breakfast, fights that they had with their neighbors. You know what I mean? I mean, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't.
How has not a Mothman picture gone viral?
Yeah,
I mean, seriously.
You'd be on TikTok, you'd have something on there.
Point Pleasant had 6,000 people back in 1966, 67. They had over 100 documented reports of Mothman in 13 months. And this has been going on since 2011 in Chicago and the surrounding area. And there's not one picture of a Mothman and not too many people that are actually come forward and say, hey, I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I know we can all come to agreement that it's not these entitled jerks.
Right.
Yes. That's as we refer to them down here in Florida, entitled jerks. They know they're protected and they don't care. They just make you wait as they're going by. But yeah, it's one of those, you see these things like they put, it's like, I see the reports. I'm like, no, that was one of the worst explanations of what a Mothman could ever be. Is like, it's a sandhill crane that you saw. It's like, no, yeah, it's like, if anybody's seen them take off, they don't fly off quickly like the reports. I mean, these things do this slow flap. They go so slow. Yeah, so living down here, it's like I got firsthand knowledge. I'm like, oh yeah, no, there's no way somebody can mistake that a sandhill crane for a Mothman. Yeah. You see the reports and just the chat. I mean, I think some of those just same way with the Chicago one. This seems to me a little bit like back in the 50s when you had a lot of people that when the hysteria was starting to pick up about little green men, aliens, where you get the people that would come forward with, this is what I saw, and I saw, and they're coming, and you could almost to a T just have a little template there, and you knew exactly which points they were going to bring up at some point that they saw, that they did this, it had this, and you're like, you could almost pinpoint it back to the news articles that they had read previously. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was seeming like. And that's where I wanted to get you guys, set what side you're on. I mean, I don't honestly, I don't think there's I don't think it's bad if you believe them. But it's one of those, I've always been the thing. It's like, I always like to get down to, if I can get rid of the noise, what's usually left over, there might be something there. If you can just get rid of just all the stuff, and it really seems like that's where you three are coming at, that you're really trying to get to the point of, it's like where these things, and if you can point out these inconsistencies, like, they all didn't go to a Starbucks coffee shop and all use the same computer, some internet cafe to do the same, if it's all, they say that they're in different parts of the town and they did the reports. I'm like, yeah, but are you guys sharing the same laptop? Because it's all coming from the same location.
Going into this, I was not looking to be a debunker by any means, and I'm still not. My goal is not to be a debunker at all. But when you got to look at the information in an unbiased manner, and this is where I've ended up.
Yeah, and I think, even in that, I think that's gotten such a bad rap with a lot of people, but because I think there are some people that go about this in a really condescending, just nasty way, of, basically doing the, you're an idiot, I can't believe. And I think that gives the legitimate approach people such a bad thing, because it's when I call myself a skeptical believer, because I have I have it just right behind me, I want to believe poster. I mean, I point those out all the time. And it's just, I have all the stuff in here. I believe in these creatures. It's just one of those things. It's just, I can't just on face value, just go, okay, I believe, if you three of you walked, told me right now, we saw Mothman, I believe you. But if you guys say, I see him every night, and he's out in my backyard, and this is what he's eating out of this, he's doing all these things. At some point, I have to have something else from you. It's like, okay, what is he eating? What is he leaving behind? What are the footprints? Feathers. I mean, something. You've got to have something by now.
See it, yeah.
Yeah.
Take a picture, for God's sake.
And that's my thing. It's like at some point there has to be something else. Just scientifically, something has to have happened. Branches have to have broken. something to show, interaction. It can't just materialize, nothing occurs, dematerializes, and we just have, this wonderful story to tell. There has to be something physical. Something has to be, changed. And that's where I like talking with people like yourself, because I feel like, kind of the kindred spirit in a way. It's like that there's a lot of people that are kind of coming at it from, from all different directions, but they kind of have the same goal in mind. It's like, let's find the truth. And you don't have to mock, you don't have to belittle people in the process. But you can also say, yeah, no, go ahead.
I think, Craig, and that's, when I get kind of fired up when talking about this, but ultimately there does seem to be something mysterious worth investigating. I mean, there really does. I mean, within Chicago, certainly at Point Pleasant, there are other spots as well too. And I think being a skeptical believer is probably pretty close to the way that I'm cut as well too. I think that where the three of us are coming from is from an angle of, let's just really figure some stuff out. Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's compare notes. And I think that that's the part that we find the most challenging about the entire Chicagoland type phenomenon, is that the narrative seems controlled by a couple of different authors. And there has been a glove cast down, not necessarily by the folks who are on the skeptical side, but the ones who are making the money. And it's been thrown not necessarily in our direction, us personally, but it's been thrown close enough to us that it makes it one of those things where it's a little challenging not to react, but still I think we don't really want to react because we want to be objective and approach things from a reasonable standpoint, and hope that there is something neat that we can all figure out.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's one of those, like the reports, because there's not just these main ones. There is people that say that they see something large in the sky, and I mean, we could infer, because there's always been the reports, from back, native, thunderbirds. There's always been something in the sky, large. What could it be? And that's the type of thing that's what's the cool part of the research, is trying to find these accounts and trying to piece together where this is and follow this trail. And it seems like the three of you are like, you're setting aside, just all of the, back and forth, infight. I mean, you're just like, no, I don't care about that. It's, just, we're looking for the information.
Yeah. And a lot of people who live in the Chicago area don't necessarily realize that we do have big birds here. Because we're in a big city, we have herons, blue herons. They're huge. We have sandhill cranes. We have turkey vultures. Some of the reports that I've seen, they pretty much describe a turkey vulture, the shape of the wings, the fact that it doesn't flap and it maneuvers, the wingspan. But a lot of people just don't look up. Or they don't realize that those are around here because it's so urban, but they absolutely are here. And I do think maybe a couple of the reports, somebody genuinely did see a large bird like that and just didn't know what it was, and so they jumped him off, man.
And I'll get kind of your guys' take on this too, because I'm one of the big things, because there seems to be like this massive uptick in reports and sightings lately, and I honestly think it had to do with the name that shall not be named, on internet, C19, that caused so many people to actually spend, because you're not doing the rat race thing, you're not racing to the soccer match, you're not racing to work. More people, instead of looking down at the phones and stuff, they actually took time to look out, and they're like, oh my God, what's that in the sky? And they actually saw something. And it, like you said, it could be people from Chicago that were, normally they would be doing something, they just happened to look up and they actually saw something. I've never seen a bird that big before. And here's a report. And that's what I like. It's like you said, this sighting resembles, possibly what a turkey vulture is.
Well, have you ever seen a bald eagle? I mean, those things are huge. And I mean, there were sightings in Rockford and Roscoe. I mean, places outside of Chicago in the suburbs, far west of Chicago. And you can see an eagle flying, any given day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's for me. That's one of those things too. Is if you can isolate it, doesn't mean that person didn't see something. It's just you're able to actually identify it, which is cool. Because and that's the thing. And like I said, you don't have to call somebody crazy. You don't have to say, you're an idiot for reporting this. And that's why I think there's so many people that are afraid to say something because they're worried people are going to make fun of them, do something. Where I think that's the thing. People need to be believed when they say it, and then that's when the people like yourselves. That's when the research begins.
Yeah, personally, I would rather people, report big birds. If you think you do something, report it, and then let people like us sort through it. I would rather have mundane things reported than exquisite things not.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things too. It's just the more information you can get, the more you can actually start to pin. Because it's like on the trail of something. Just as you see it, it's like pings. You're getting closer to where this one is this one, and then by the time you get to it, you're like you can actually start to weed out and actually see patterns that actually fit what you're looking for, and that's where it's benefit. Like I do know one of those things, like when you get like UFO reportings, you can basically, where you're seeing the reports, you can almost plot the flight path of the UFO based off the different reports. But if you only get one person that shows up, you can't plot a path. You just have the little old rancher that was out, with the cows and saw something zip by. Well, that you got one point of reference, and that's it. And that's where I always encourage people. It's like, if you see something, say something. There's, without using a government tagline there, see something, say something, type thing. But it's the same way in our thing. If you see it, just talk about it. Let people know. Call MUFON. Call the Phenomenology Research Partners. Go to their website. It's like I said, drop them information. It's like, we've seen this. Is this something here? Let the experts, let the ones that do this thing, talk you through it. Don't just rely on, my Google Wikipedia search, to tell me what I found, because, it's like, you may have the piece that you guys have been looking for, but to me, it's just, like WebMD, I've discovered that, I've got all these you go on there and you figure out, you're like, it's just a bird, but it might've been the piece that you guys have been looking for. Mm-hmm. And so other than what, kind of back on your visit that you guys are going, what do you guys have coming up here in the near future that you get? Is like something, anything big? Are you guys looking to do any?
Well, we're currently doing a study on the post-traumatic growth of the Silver Bridge disaster from Point Pleasant. So we're working at that right now. We have one more interview to do. That's with Jeff Wamsley. And after that, Bill, why don't you go ahead and tell them about that? You're doing that part of it.
And so to kind of back up again to 2016, when Jackie and I had talked, and I really wanted to interview Carolyn Harris about the loss that she suffered and how, how her life had changed. The other thing that was going on in my life at that point in time was I was working towards my PhD in psychology. And so all along, I wanted to couple my research interests with my interest in Point Pleasant and the Mothman. I wasn't quite sure how to do that, but earlier this year, I wrapped up the doctorate and was done with that, thankfully. Now my wife and I actually spent some time together, but we decided over the course of the next few months, the three of us kind of spitballed ideas for what we wanted to do in terms of a study and how it could relate to our interests. So what we came up with was, what are the effects of post-traumatic growth, or the dimensions of post-traumatic growth as they result to the folks who experienced the Silver Bridge collapse? That was one research question. The second research question was very similar. What are the dimensions of post-traumatic growth as they manifested in individuals who experienced some of the paranormal phenomena in the Ohio River Valley at the same time? So basically during the Mothman flap. So what we did at that point was to contact Jeff. We started building a friendship with Jeff 5 years ago. We get together with them every year now. But as this has kind of went along, we got a hold of Jeff, we got a hold of Steve Ward, we got a hold of Andy Colvin. We asked them who they thought would be good people to participate in the study. Andy has graciously stepped forward. We interviewed him. And then we worked through a lady by the name of Beth Sargent, who is the newspaper publisher for the Point Pleasant Register and the Gallipolis equivalent of the Point Pleasant Register. So one other newspaper in that area as well. So she helped us. She put together a really beautiful advertisement for us on the front page of those newspapers prior to our not our last trip, but the trip that we took in late June, early July of this year. And she helped us to line up 3 other witnesses. So we were able to go conduct interviews with these witnesses, not necessarily witnesses of Mothman per se, but witnesses of the bridge collapse and the devastation that it wreaked. And some of them actually experienced some paranormal phenomena as well too. So long story short, at this point we've conducted, I think, 8 interviews. And so what we've done with those interviews is Amanda has transcribed most of them. Jackie did a little bit of transcribing also. And then they forwarded those documents to me. And I have a software which helps me to be able to go through a process of sorting through that data to determine common themes so that we can come up with the subject material for a psychological study about the effects of post-traumatic growth that was experienced in the Ohio River Valley as a result of the bridge collapse and the paranormal phenomena. That study is going to be embedded into a book. We were actually asked to speak and to present at each of the last 2 Mothman festivals.
3.
By Jeff, and the last 3 Mothman festivals, but the last 2 were both canceled, so we're
I know.
still on the docket for next year. But the book should be out by that point in time as well.
I'm hoping. What are you able to talk about? What book that is? I mean, is that still kind of like?
Well, we have a title for it. Amanda, it was your baby. What was the title?
Oh, we were kind of taking parts of all 3 of our ideas and putting them together, but mine was the other side of the bridge.
And there'd be a subtitle that went with that too. That's going to be along the lines of the post-traumatic growth that was experienced due to the events of 1967 or something along those lines. We have to kind of tighten that up a little bit, being that we're still not quite done with the interviews. The data hasn't all presented itself yet, but I think that the other side of the bridge, and then a subtitle below that speaks
The
to
lived experience. That's what it was. It was the lived experience,
That's it.
1967.
So are you guys going through a publisher, or is it going to be self-published? What do you?
We haven't entirely arrived upon a way to do that yet. We've got a couple of ideas, and we can certainly let you know more about that in about 3 months.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
No, it's a great
We
question.
wish we were there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the end of the slideshow here, and you guys are like, wait, slow burn, let it build.
Yeah, do your
Oh
thing.
my
This is
God.
your show.
Yeah, settle down, Craig. Settle down. All right. Yeah. So yeah, let me know. That sounds fascinating because that's one of those. I'm still up in air on whether or not I believe the Mothman was a harbinger or an observer.
Mm-hmm.
Through the things, because I'm one. I think through my times, through the X-Files, through Fringe, I see it more of like an observer creature, than I do like an actual. If you see him, doom is approaching, type thing. Like this is, because you got that one, like he shows up and then all of a sudden the bridge collapses. I think it's more of like the Fringe. You got the albino guys with the hats. Just coming in, this is a moment that's getting ready to happen, and they're there to observe. And so I said, there's so many different camps. Is it one of those that's from another dimension that pops in, from time to time? I don't know, but it's like it's definitely something that between those interviews and what you guys come at, that sounds really fascinating. Like something that would be a real fun read.
What's been really cool about the interviews and some of the folks that have stepped forward to participate, one of them was a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Wedge. And Jimmy was somebody that I don't know that we ever could have picked a better individual to come forward and to be interviewed, because he was the basketball coach of the Point Pleasant boys team. And he was actually coaching his very first game as head coach. Did not know his dad was back in town. His dad traveled, he was on the road, but dad came back to surprise him for his very first game, went to go pick up mom, went to dinner, came back across the bridge. Both of them passed away from the bridge. And Jimmy had not given an interview for many, many, many years, but he was one of the ones that when he saw the ad in the Point Pleasant Register, he called me and said, I'd like to do this. We didn't know who he was, but Denny Bellamy, Jeff Wamsley, anybody who's really close to the whole epicenter of the Mothman thing in Point Pleasant said, you got the man. If you were going to try to select somebody, you absolutely got the man. And I mean, I was nervous going into that interview because it was so profound. I mean, the gentleman lost both of his parents. I mean, how much more serious could that be? But it was just amazing. But the other thing that was neat, I thought, about the people that we interviewed, some experienced paranormal stuff, some did not, but everybody's angle was just a little bit different. And I think that that's what makes their testimony so important. And that's why when we talk about things like the alleged Chicago Mothman thing there, I mean, I don't want to give the impression that we discount out of hand what these people might be experiencing, because it could be entirely different than what we're thinking it is. It's important for people to talk about this stuff. It's just fascinating to get the perspectives of all these different folks.
Yeah, no, I as you're describing his thing, I mean, that fits the title, you know, like I'll go with working title of the book right now is, you know, with like the post-traumatic, you know, because I mean, what's more traumatic than losing both your parents to an event and then having stories to talk about it? Because that's like you said, that's compelling in itself, just getting that person's perspective on how did this affect you type thing. Because, you know,
being able to distill the stuff that they gained. You know, obviously we know people lost loved ones, they lost their economy there for a long time, and all kinds of terrible things came, but we've pulled up so much good information too about how the community banded together, how the community now has grown as a result of the phenomenon of the Mothman, all these neat things that have happened, people's spiritual development. I mean, you name it, the different post-traumatic dimensions that are coming out of this are off the charts. It's been really an honor to be a part of this thing.
Well, yeah, in a few of the shows that we've talked about, that's one of the things that's so fascinating. It's, you know, it's like I talk to people, it's like regardless of whether or not you believe there's a black creature with glowing red eyes, you know, or whatever, it just, you know, type thing. How amazing is this for a community that they not only have they embraced it, it's not the cheesy, you know, drive-in thing where just everything is just these horrible cheap souvenirs. They've actually made a thing about it, just to where as a community, it's like come experience the community. And everybody I've talked to, like you said, when going to the diner and so everybody that's been there has said that the people in the area is just amazing. And, you know, it makes me want to go see it, that they're just like, when you go here, I mean, it lives up to its name, you know, the Pleasant, you know, Point
They're
Pleasant.
so
I mean,
welcoming. They're just the kindest people you'd ever meet. And they're so patient. I mean, you can tell that people are more important to them than anything else is. And if you go in there and just want to have a conversation and get to know these folks, they will spend all kinds of time with you. We got one guy we interviewed, Mark Griffith, who has been a friend of ours now for 5.5 years, since the very first time we met him. I mean, we met him in Carolyn's Diner, and he offered to participate in our study as well too. But just an example of just the kindness and the outgoingness and the friendliness of the people of Point Pleasant. It's really pretty tremendous.
Yeah, it was hard getting through some of these interviews, honestly, because these people are so sweet and genuine, and they're telling us the stuff that was it's really hard to hear. So I can't imagine what it was like for them going through it. I'm just really honored that they took the time to sit down with us and tell us their stories. It was very emotional, I think, for all of us.
There was a few women, well, men too, but a few women for sure that were in their senior year in high school, and other ones when they were younger in school. But they said, you know, that you just went back to school. There wasn't anyone to talk to. We didn't have counselors then. We just had to band together, kind of go with whatever. There were so many funerals all at Christmas time, and there was a couple teachers that passed away on the bridge, and there was a kid in one of the classes of, I think, Denny or Jeff's age, that her body was never found. And there was
Wow.
just an empty chair for the rest of the school year. I mean, it's really touching. It's really touching. And it's very important for people to remember that the people of Point Pleasant, regardless of Mothman, still lost a lot.
Yeah. No, it's now. Do they have being not that? Do they have like a remembrance? I mean, do they honor it like at that time every year? I mean, is it something like as a community they still do that, or is that just something where over time it's become more like there's still something that signifies it, but it's not like an event? I mean, that's what I said, not being. They
do it. They read all of the people that perished, all their names on December 15th every year. And last year, the community didn't do it because of the virus. But Brittany Sayer, she's just one of the most sweetest young ladies that I think I know. And her mom, Susan, was interviewed, and she said that Brittany just said, Mom, it's not right. Will you please film me so I can do it live on Facebook? And she read all of the names out by the memorial last December. So it still continues.
Yeah, I say that it's like that's on the list. I'm making a trip. I'm going to have to take at least 2 weeks off from work, and I'm just going to have to make a tour just to go see it, because I've got to go to Ohio. I've got to, obviously I have to go West Virginia. If I don't see Point Pleasant and go see Mark Eddy, it's like pretty much, just going to have to hide in shame. It's like if I don't, I got to get this, this things done, get these things checked off.
Mark's been blowing up the screen here all night long. I've
seen
him on there.
Yeah, it's one of those things. He's been, amazing, help for us. And but while I say what we're talking about it too, it's like, once again, like your website, Phenomenology Research Partners.com too. You guys also have your merchandise shop, for people to go and support you guys for this as well. Because I'm looking at a few things like your t-shirt, I can bring this on screen here for the people that are watching or not just listening. You can actually see it. There's somebody's pictures right there in the front there. Yeah, so there's some of the items right there.
Lovely items. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so that's sideways. Yeah, so you just click, Teespring. It's we go, and Mark, come on up. I say, I know, I want it. Trust me, it's a matter. It's not a matter of desire. It's a matter of logistics. Is getting up there. But I'll have an excuse. My mom and stepdad just moved to Tennessee.
Whereabouts?
So, just Crossville.
I don't know where that's at.
It's real close to the border with Kentucky, right just to the northeast of Nashville, I believe. Right up near the border.
Yeah.
You'll have to let us know when you get to Point Pleasant or when you're en route, and who knows, maybe we'll come out there and meet you.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Like I said, we'll just have to have a big meet and greet at the diner, and just have a real good time talking with everybody in person, because that's. But as we're wrapping up here, we're gonna do that. All right, what is your favorite thing to research? I'm going to go with Amanda's. Possibly might have something to do with a UFO. Possibly, not only because it's in her bio, but because of who she's involved with. Possibly, that's my Karnak thing.
Oh, why'd I have to go first? My favorite thing to research. Probably just the nature of consciousness and physical versus non-physical.
No, that's cool. Yeah. No, there's no wrong answer here. As I said, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. I think there's a pretty big separation there, and it just fascinates me. Yeah. And that I think that encompasses probably the cryptids and UFOs and pretty much everything you can think of. Are they just emanations of our normal consciousness, or is it something else coming into our consciousness?
Yeah, no, that's.
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
I know. If you guys see me looking down, it's like I like to write notes as I go through the thing. So it's like I said, if you ever, I always tell people that don't think I'm ignoring, because like I said, usually by the time I'm done, like I said, I have pages, stuff written. So it's like, so Jackie, what about you?
Oh, I'm kind of where Amanda is. Anything strange, anything weird. But I think my favorite thing is, I guess researching it by being in them is vortices. I love the feeling that I have when I'm like right in a vortex. I absolutely love it. It's indescribable.
Now, kind of like, sidebar on that one too, is for how do you, what is the best way, like you would say you could explain to somebody like the feeling or how you're in one of those vortices? I mean, and that's one of those, because this is something where, like I said, if you need time to explain it, that's fine. No, it was just curious, just like how do you come about that for like, just for the layman's, things like to do this?
The electrical energy, the energy that is there, the feeling of being pulled up and out of yourself. It's almost like a feeling like everything's surreal, like you're not even really there, like you're floating through life, which makes me wonder, like Amanda was saying, is it physical or is it spiritual? I mean, it makes you question everything. It makes you question everything when you're going through the experience.
Yeah, it sounds like, it's like almost like a transcendence, thing when you go through these things. Do you find that it has anything tied to like a ley line? Because there's believers like in the energy grids, where it's just, if something feels off, we had somebody that talked about that, where if something feels off, move it over like a foot. Like it's to where it's like, if you feel like feels off, like when you're sitting, like you're not getting, move your bed, just, move your bed over, and you might, that might be all it takes.
Yeah, but I'm seriously, the last vortex that we were in, all three of us together, you would have had to move it miles.
Yeah,
because you can feel the energy from it for miles, and it's
wow,
it's crazy. It's crazy, literally to the point where we were doing a ghost box session on a Zoom meeting with a couple of friends of ours, and I had on a blindfold and the headphones, and seriously thought that somebody was on the front bumper and the back bumper just rocking the heck out of the car. And I took off my blindfolds because I was like freaking out, and the car was completely still. There was that much movement going on with me.
Wow.
Everything was still.
That's incredible. And it's like, for me, just where I'm just thinking, it's like, how, like scientifically, how do you quantify something like that? Like through research? I mean, what do you do? I mean, because we all know that there's that phenomenon. Everybody's done that one where you feel, you have like, you feel like you close your eyes or something and you feel like things are starting to spin. Mm-hmm. But, how do you guys have you found a way? Do you know of a way that there is to actually start putting data points to this, to where you can actually show something that this is in fact an actual physical, occurrence, and not just something that you're feeling internally, just like your equilibrium?
It has to be something other than that, because Bill and Amanda were in the car. The car was totally still, and our friends, well, there was 3 of them on the Zoom meeting, and they could all verify that they did not see them moving at all, and they didn't see me moving at all. So it had to have been something like within my soul or something moving. Mm-hmm. I was told that spirits were fighting to get in. We had a psychic that was on Zoom, and she was like basically saying stuff that was confirming everything that I was saying that was coming out of the spirit box. And she said that the spirits were fighting to try to get in, and that was like emotionally or physically felt physical to me, moving me.
Well, as you're describing it, I could see that, where it just, it's like as things are bouncing, like if they're trying to get in, I could see how that would be, would give you that feeling of like you're being like the ping pong, like you're getting bumped around as things are trying to slam in, trying to get in. That makes sense. And it's really fantastic, how like an individual, you can have everybody in the same vehicle, but one person's having this experience I'm assuming that the two of you didn't have anything similar.
Well, the thing is, I did experience the same thing just before Jackie. Just before Jackie, I was hooked up to the spirit box and blindfolded, and I remember I got so angry because I thought they were messing with me. I kept blindfold off and be like, guys, just chill, like hold still. I thought they were moving around and shaking the car, and so because we were in the car, and they're like, oh my God, what's wrong with her? And so I just gave up, and I said, here, somebody else do this, because I kept feeling the car shaking back and forth.
Well, she had an experience also. We did an investigation at a haunted studio. I'm not going to go into where it was, but it was in Ohio, in Gallipolis, Ohio, across the river from Point Pleasant. And I was asking the questions, and there was another person there asking the questions, and Bill and Amanda both had headsets on with spirit boxes and blindfolds. And Amanda kept going like, who's moving my chair? Who's moving my chair? And nobody was moving her chair. Or it's like we had cameras on her and everything, and you can see literally her chair was not moving. Her chair wasn't even touching the chairs that were beside her, but she kept feeling like somebody was pushing her chair.
Yeah, but then so after I had to freak out in the car, and then Jackie does the session, and she experiences the same thing. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe there's something to this, because I for sure was not shaking the car, and neither was Bill. So it was weird, me experiencing it and then watching it, and then in the reverse for Jackie, she watched it and then experienced it. So still, do we have any measurable data that came from that? No, you still got to take our word for it.
Well, exactly, because I know, like, I can't quote the study. Is that one? It's when they tried to measure the soul. Where the guy died, and there was like this minuscule weight change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those. It's just in the head. Like all the ghost, the ghost research equipment. It is one of those things too, where it's just, I wonder if there's some test, if there's some way to test this thing, because you got two different people that have had the same experience using the same device, having the same thing. It's like, I don't know. I mean, is there something that would be able to measure just the intensity, to measure what goes, I mean, to show like if there's any, like any interaction that you can't visually see, but you can actually tell, like the machine starts picking it up.
Well, if anybody out there listening or watching can invent something, I personally think with the technology that we have right now, it doesn't seem likely. I feel like we'd already be there by now. I think it's a whole different sort of device that we'd need. Like, what are we even measuring? I don't know.
The military probably has it.
Yeah.
They probably do.
They're probably causing it.
Yeah, they're the ones beaming it into, into it's like.
Well, like I said, when you're in those areas, you feel untethered anyway. So if you're talking about the soul being a little less weighed down, then that would make sense, because if you're feeling untethered and you feel like you're floating up out of your head, Bill said it through his third eye. Amanda and I feel like it's coming out the top of our heads. Maybe there is something there that really can pull you up and out. I could go in so many directions with that, because I was just talking to somebody about sleep paralysis and visitations and abductions and everything. And maybe they're just abducting us through our souls, and we're still laying in our beds at night. And we're actually leaving, but astro travel basically with alien or whatever, and then being slammed back down into our bodies. And I mean, I wake up feeling like I've been slammed back into bed, or like I'm falling, and so there's all this stuff too. It's like there's too much. There's too much.
And what Jackie's referring to there, Craig, is when we were doing that ghost box session with our friends over Zoom with the psychic who was there also. We had also done another session a few months before that in the same area. This is a different location in West Virginia, but the three of us did experience this feeling of being lifted up out of our heads, the two of them from the top and me from the third eye area. And our psychic friend told us, and she was from that region, she's from that area. She said, don't let them take you. Don't let them take you. So who knows what the heck was going on? It's the craziest experience that I've ever had in my life. I mean, number 2 would have been the first time we were there. Number 1 was when we were on Zoom with those folks. Absolutely off the charts. I was feeling chest pains. Our psychic person was telling us that somebody had died of a heart attack and was trying to come through. She asked if Jackie was wearing a relative's piece of jewelry. She wears her dad's wedding band on her hand regularly. I mean, it was just crazy. The whole thing was insane.
Wow. That's one of the things, because as you said, the slam down, I've had that a couple of times where it feels like you wake up and it feels like I've dropped into bed.
Yep.
And I've often wondered, is that something where at some point I've asked, like astral projection, like I've actually started to go, but for some reason I've snapped back, and it's like, and that slam is what you feel, because it literally feels like you've dropped into the bed. For anybody that's never experienced it, I mean, it's a really weird sensation. And so, that's one. Yeah, if anybody has an idea how to do that would definitely be something, because it's one of those. It's just always been the fascination. It's like how to recreate, how to do this stuff, because it's one of those. There's definitely, when you have multiple people having the same experience, doing the same thing, then you have something there, because obviously, there's one show that I have to take at face value that they haven't talked before. So you have to trust them there, the psychic and the investigator, when they go in and then they come back and they compare notes. That one's always been more compelling to me. I mean, I take it on faith that there wasn't a pre-show meeting. It's like, all right, now here's what we're going to talk about. So, but it's one of those, when you see it, it's like, how compelling is that? It's like when you have, like you said, you had on the Zoom call, you had somebody saying they're doing this, and that's exactly what the person who's got headphones on and a blindfold is feeling. Is it, and that's pretty compelling to me. And so where was this at that you guys were doing this test?
Well, it's in a location we can't really disclose, but we can tell you it is in the state of West Virginia.
That's what you said. Okay, I remember
it was somebody
else's
intellectual property, and we don't want to violate that trust.
Yeah, I understand. That wasn't a try to. It's like, let's try to backdoor and get the information out of them. No, I tried to remember. I'm like, this is a location, and as soon as you said we can't, I'm like, oh, that's right. That was the site that they can't talk about. It's like, this one we went, and we can't disclose it.
But it is West Virginia. So
what is it about the Ohio River Valley that is so potent with this activity? What is it about that? Is it just, like you said, is it a giant, pretty much like a giant vortex type thing that's kind of funnels this energy into this location?
The author John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies, spoke to the fact that West Virginia was kind of off limits to the Native Americans. They didn't really do a whole lot within that state. And I'm not a Native American expert, but typically it seems that they had pretty sound reasoning for things they did and things they didn't do. They avoided the state. I've heard the Ohio River Valley being referred to as a valley of the dead, because a lot of bodies are buried, in the vicinity of the river, right along, the riverbanks and such, and very close to that. Now, I can say that Chief Cornstalk, who we spoke of earlier in the show, his native burial grounds were very close to the TNT area, or McClintock Wildlife Preserve, as it's known now, which is where the first sighting of Mothman in the Point Pleasant area took place. There were a couple of them before that, one of them in Clendenin, West Virginia. But to answer your question in a roundabout kind of a way, there's a lot of mountains there. There's unexplored territory there. There's a very good chance there's stuff that's living out there that hasn't been identified, and there are lots of places to hide.
There are a lot of mounds.
There are a lot of caves.
Yeah.
Ancient mounds, which some say have something to do with the energy of the area.
Yeah, it's it's one of those. Is that did it have something to do with the giants? Because there's always those where the Native Americans fought back against those. It was, I think, I remember the story. It was something about, it was like, if I remember all the details about it, it's like, wasn't it like cannibalistic, like these giants? And it was just, it basically, there was I want to say there was something like about a giant battle.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I've definitely heard that.
I wonder if, was it around this area? Is that one of the things like this work? Because I believe those stories. It's just, it's, when you have these that all have the same tale, it's like, yeah, we don't go there. There had to be a reason. They didn't just decide, hey, we're not walking over that hill just because, I don't feel like walking. I mean, they had some reason to say, don't go there.
The Moon-eyed people is another theory that they wouldn't. The Native Americans didn't even want to be there. They wouldn't stay there. They would move through that area because of the Moon-eyed people. Yeah,
it's just the whole area is just tied. Everything from the Pukwudgie to just everything is just in. It just all seems to be just going in that one. Just kind of just that nice little section. See, I get more reasons to do this road trip. I got to get there.
You'll love it. You won't want to go back.
Well, until the wintertime rolls around, then it's going to be peace out, palm trees back for me. It's like, yes.
Yeah, you're in Florida now. Yeah, so you might want to go back for a while anyhow.
Yeah. I'll wait till spring when it starts to thaw out, then go there. It's like, I know I have to be there in September. I know that for the festival. Yeah. So that's a given. It's got to be sometime around September, but fortunately that's height of hurricane season.
But you also have to go there when it's not all crowded with festival goers, and so you can just experience the town in its natural state, in its pleasantness.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good point too, because like I said, then you get to see what everybody sees like on a regular basis, as opposed to just feeding off the energy of the crowd. It's like here's like, I mean, that is a great point. But before we get too far away, Bill, what is your favorite thing to research? We haven't gotten to you.
My favorite thing to research, and I'm glad you asked the ladies before me, because I was thinking, holy cow, what don't I research? To be honest with you. I was a psychology student for the last 10 years until January, and I still like to study anything that has to do with the thought process, or like Jackie and Amanda talked about, consciousness, ESP, things of that nature. Man's experience of the divine is really, really interesting to me. I've studied various religions. I have a really good time just trying to understand the connections between various belief systems and the things they have in common, rather than the things that keep people apart. But honestly, I mean, when it comes down to brass tacks, I have more hours in, more long nights, more video viewing. I've studied Mothman more than anything else I've studied in my life. I am totally immersed in the legend. It is just a fascinating study to me. To me, Point Pleasant from 1966 to 1967 was 13 months worth of Skinwalker Ranch activity, off the charts, crazy stuff, coupled with wonderful people, totally folksy, approachable individuals. To me, the whole Point Pleasant Mothman experience has got to be my number one.
Yep, kind of we did that. Just kind of bounce on that one too. Are you under, are you kind of in the mindset of like, was that something? Because I'm leaning towards like a few of these sightings. I honestly think it's a thinning of the veil, and that there's a crossover event, because there's like the Van Meter visitor. You have these different ones where, that's the same one. You have all these people that see these things and then just they're gone. The sightings just go, it's like crazy, and then just crashes. I mean, they've just disappeared. I mean, it's one of those, they've come through, and then the veils, went away, the opening went away, and that's why all that stuff just suddenly just comes to a halt?
Well, Keel talked about window areas, and he referred to the Point Pleasant area as being a window area. Now, as you were saying this, and I don't know that I've really had this as a fully baked belief system or anything of that nature, but it seems to me that these window areas can move. Now, there hasn't been a whole lot of reportage of this manifestation of phenomena at that level ever happening in Point Pleasant again. There are occasional sightings. I mean, and there's a lot of legendary status that's ascribed to Point Pleasant now, and people still do see things there, but not with the frequency that they did in 66 and 67. So maybe this veil thinned temporarily within that area. Maybe it's still thin in this other area that we're talking about, because we can feel it there. I didn't feel anything overly mystical. I had a lot of excitement the first couple times we went to Point Pleasant, and then it became like a second home. But that veil is definitely thin in that other spot in West Virginia. For crying out loud, the three of us are here to tell you we felt it. So I do think that there are other areas in different locations throughout the globe. I don't know that Point Pleasant still is one, but I do think they still exist, and I think they move.
That's and so you just kind of said it. And that was a segue to like the next roundtable question I had for you guys. What is the either the craziest or the most intense experience you've ever had in all your research? Like I said, I know these are the easy questions I'm throwing at you right at the end. It's because there's, like I said, there's not really a right or wrong answer. It's like if it just had to pop in your head right now.
Yeah,
what is that?
In the research, probably when they were talking about we all were kind of coming up out of our heads. Well, at the same time, so I was hooked up to the spirit box, and I'm just saying random words that I hear. I didn't know what was going on around me at all, but I did stop and say, "Hey guys, right now I feel like I'm coming out of the top of my head. It's really weird. I just feel like I gotta say that." And then it turns out I started describing what was going on behind me outside of the car. It turns out there was some people watching us, but I didn't know this. I just started
wow,
describing what they were doing. I was saying a man, a woman watching, and Bill asked, I couldn't hear him ask, but he asked, should we leave? And I said, undeniable. And so next thing I know, I just feel the car start. Oh, they're just turning on the air conditioner. They got uncomfortable or whatever. Then I feel the car move. I'm still hooked up. I don't know what's going on. And so I ripped the headphones off and the blindfold off. And they asked me, do you know what you just said? No. And then they filled me in. I think that was the most dramatic experience I had so far.
That was the shortest ghost box session we've ever done.
Yes.
Wow.
Scared us half to death. We got out of there.
It happened quickly. It happened very quickly. Yeah.
And then it turns out they felt the same thing coming out the tops of their heads.
Yeah. When you listen to it back over, you could hear Bill and I talking about feeling like we're being pulled up out of our heads. And then Amanda says, I just feel like I'm being pulled up out of my head. And then she says, a man, and there's a man in the yard. And then she says, the lady, and the lady's walking across the street and back. You can see her go through her house, come out, stand on the porch and stare at us. And it's like, okay, wow. Well, this is getting really weird.
And then I say the thing, and we should get out of here.
So, Jack, what about you? Was this the same thing, or have you had like another instance where it's like either the best evidence, just the best result, just the craziest experience?
Well, that was the scariest experience. I've never been really scared by doing those. That freaked me out. I would say Amanda and I have gone both north and south of Point Pleasant, several miles, to different locations. And based on other sessions with information that we received, and we just keep getting more and more information that would lead us to more and more places. And it's almost, this is the weirdest stuff. It's almost like it just wants you to keep going around in circles, but never give you answers. That session I was talking about that we did at the studio, whatever was in that studio was toying with every one of us there. It was toying with Bill. It was toying with Amanda. It was toying, and they didn't even know what was going on with the questions I was asking. And it was saying stuff, and they were coming up with the answers, and it was playing big time games with us. And we had a couple of hours of recording of that. So that was probably the very weirdest one where I literally know that something is capable of messing with people, and you don't see what it is that's doing it.
Yeah, did you have a feeling of whether or not it was, was it spiritual? Do you feel like it was actually more of like a physical, like it was in a physical location, to where, because there's always been the report, like psychic, the people that can actually go in, and try almost like a psychic control, because CIA has been involved in all these, alleged
when we went
projects.
into this place, instantly I got sick feeling in my stomach in the hallway by the bathroom. And then I found out later that there was literally a video of an orb that was toying with a boy and following a boy out of that hallway into another room right in that area. And then I said also another area was back where she had taken us. And I found out later that there's electrical equipment, VCRs and things like that open and close and come on and go off automatically by themselves quite often there. So I think it's a spiritual thing. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, we were we were asking questions, if we could get a name, just wanted a name so they knew who they were dealing with. And it just kept like one thing after another. It was like somebody, we thought it was somebody that perished in the Silver Bridge collapse because it was a cold and a cage and then all these different things. And it's like, then they said that was taken by the hag, and we had talked about doing a sleep paralysis study. And it's like, okay, so now it knows that we were going to do that. We're talking about doing that study. And then Indrid Cold kept coming up. Indrid, over to Bill. I mean, it was like, whatever it is, knows our conversations or our thoughts.
Yeah, we need to do a show on the night hag, the sleep paralysis. It's like
even messed around with the other person that was there. I can't give her name, but even messed around with her, literally used her name, literally used images to Amanda to describe things about her. I mean, it was very, very weird.
It's like it knows what we want to hear almost. I don't know.
Wow. No, that's cool. Oh, yeah. See, I've already written it down. It's like, that's another thing. It's like, we have to do one of these shows on this thing because, oh my God, I love that topic. Bill, what about you? What's that?
Well, for me, it would have been the time that the five of us were on the same location that Amanda talked about before. What she was talking about was our first trip out to Point Pleasant, the three of us. And what I'm referring to was, I think, about 9 months later when we were out there in June. And we had our friends who we connect with on a regular basis with over Zoom. They were with us, one of whom is psychic, another one of whom I think is psychic also. And as they were in there with us, I think for me, the overwhelming electrical sensation of pulling me out of my head, it was like a crackling, ethereal type of feeling. And I, for a little while, didn't think I was going to come back. I thought it was going to pull me right out of my head, right out of my body. That's what it felt like. And then we went into this dialogue that we've already kind of discussed a little bit, where Jackie felt the car was shaking when she had, the blinders on in the ghost box, and Amanda felt we were shaking the car, was mad at us for doing that because she thought we were shaking the car. I experienced chest pains. Our psychic friend told us somebody had a heart attack, and then she identified that Jackie was wearing a family member's jewel, piece of jewelry. I mean, all these things were happening, and we were probably online with our friends it was probably about an hour. I know we've got that session recorded over Zoom too. So we kept record of that, but it was just absolutely insane. I mean, to the point that I'm laughing half the time through the whole thing, because it just, when you thought it couldn't get any weirder, it got just a little bit weirder.
Wow. No, Man, if we go here, we have to do one of these things. I want to see this. Like I said,
Maybe you come with us next time we do that.
no, I said if we get it, it's like we would have to plan these things because it's like I want to experience this stuff just to feel it. As long as there's not a Ouija board around, I just can't do those things.
No Ouija boards.
board.
Yeah,
we ask for protection every time we go into these things because we don't want any dark entities getting involved with this.
Yeah,
well, Bill, you weren't quite on board with the spirit box stuff. You were kind of skeptical. You saw what happened when Jackie and I would do it, and then you did it yourself.
I don't think that I would use the word skeptical so much as I was kind of more like Craig was talking about, hands off. This is getting too close to voodoo for me. I don't know that I want to be invoking anything. And I think that was where I was coming from at that point in time. But then I did get involved, and I've done a couple of them myself as well, too. And we've just come up with so much neat stuff here that you can't deny that there's something happening if you've experienced it. And this isn't something we're all like trying to put out there. The stuff that we've described from that place that we were at twice in a 9-month period of time, there's crackling energy there. It's crazy. It's off the charts. It's absolutely a vortex.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I looked up the time right. I'm like, oh my God, hour and a half. And it's like, good Lord, I kept you guys on for a while. No, I've had a great time. Like I said, everybody needs to go to check you guys out. I'm going to put this up here real quick so that way everybody can see it. Get in here and just let's get the click right here. Phenomenology Research Partners .com. Talks all about them. Get appearances, contact. So if you have information like you have seen, something in the Chicago area that is not from the same IP address. If you are from a different IP addresses, please give them some information and send that to them. You can find them on Facebook. You can also, like I said, go to their website. Click the link right here. Teespring, help support them. T-shirts. Hopefully that the little picture I made for the show, turned out okay. I'm always highly critical of my own, things. And like every time I do it, I'm like, it looks terrible. And I have other people say, no, it looks great. And I'm like, really? You like that? It's like, ugh. But yeah, so it's one of those, check them out, support them. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. Like I said, this is great. I really enjoyed it. And so, if any of you guys are experts on, the night hag and the stuff, we might have to have you back on because, like I said, it's one of those. I'm really fascinated about talking about that. Is sleep paralysis because that's what's that?
That's our next project.
Ooh, all right. Don't threaten me with a good time.
You're on.
All right. So that's like, yeah. So well, hey, we'll be in touch. Like I said, maybe we'll line this up and we'll talk about it because that's one I really want to get in depth because I don't care if you're a believer or not. Everybody has had something like this where you wake up. There's that thing, and just you can't wake up. You have this thing, and it's like for some reason you want to move. It's almost like you have to will yourself to get it, and you finally snap out of it. And it's this phenomenon. See there. See, use the word. It's a phenomenon that occurs with almost everybody has had this at some point. So it's definitely something. But yeah, everybody. Phenomenology Research Partners, check them out. Thank them for coming on. It's like I said. So, Amanda, Jackie, Bill, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you guys too. Enjoy it. We're doing a very non-traditional. We're making homemade pizzas. That's our
enjoy.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're going the unusual route. So it's like if you're doing the traditional one, good luck on the turkey. That's the challenge. Always have the turkey turn out. So, all right, guys, well, have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. And this episode was brought to you by threebeardspodcast.com. Go check us out there. Merchandise, you can go to our merch store there or go to redbubble.com. Three Beards Podcast is a thing. Check out the merchandise, support us there, or you can go to patriotradio.com on Thursdays where we're rebroadcast, or tonight we're going to have one of our episodes rebroadcast on ERRT Radio, starting at 11ish p.m. You know, courtesy of Ron. Thank you so much for that, sir. And he's done that. Thanks for everybody watching us. Check us out on all the social media, YouTube, Twitter. We have a very limited appearance on TikTok because I'm old. I shouldn't be on TikTok. The guy sitting next to me should be the one doing all the TikToking, but it's like, no. So I am the TikToker. So that was the one. Yeah. So it's really weird, you know. So I can't do some of the stupid videos on there. So I'm trying to find something to get traction. But you just check us out there, like us, follow us, help us get to that magical 1,000 followers. Then the world's open up to us. So it's like everybody. And I forgot to ask you guys, are you guys on YouTube?
No.
Internally,
No,
but
okay.
not externally.
Internally.
Right.
If they are, just keep an eye out. Might convince them to have, get them to open up a channel. And just post some of the research stuff, because that's pretty cool when you can catch up with people like that. So but yeah, we're on YouTube. Follow us there. Comment. Just let us know. What you liked about the show. Just please do that. Comment. Follow, subscribe, do all that. But best of all, everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Have a great time with the family. Enjoy it. It's an important time to spend time with all the loved ones. So everybody, thanks for watching. We will see you next week when we are going to be talking with Mary Joyce about underground military bases, otherwise known as DUMBs, DUMBS, deep underground and military bases. So everybody, have a great night. Thanks again. Happy Thanksgiving Day. Good night.